Yeah, let's look at what Sam had to say. This is on his Substack. Okay, so this is The Reckoning. That's what he wrote after the election. So I'm looking at this now 2 days later. He said it's an edited transcript from the Making Sense podcast. So The Reckoning has arrived. Donald Trump has been reelected president. Seems he'll have both houses of Congress, Supreme Court. Right here, this is an idea that I like a lot. It's as if Nixon got reelected to a second term after Watergate. It's better than that, or worse, depending on what you think about Trump. Luckily, I hedged my bet and never said anything too critical about him. Just obviously kidding, because he's been probably one of the most prominent people that's been very critical of him. I've been very respectful of him and Elon and the other innovators they have around them. Let's be honest, these guys just want to make America great again. Can't you give them a chance? If you've looked at the stuff he said about Elon, he's highlighted Elon's recklessness from COVID, just other things, the way that he just wants attention and the way that he has really polluted a lot of the public discourse. What I think we need now is an honest assessment of why Trump won, because it says a lot about our country that he did. It says a lot about how divided we are. It says a lot about the state of the media and the effects of social media. Okay, you can make the case that it was immigration in the southern border, it was inflation in the cost of groceries. You could say that it was the way Trump responded to the first assassination attempt, which, among other things, prompted Musk to endorse him within minutes, or that it was Harris is a weak candidate. The fact that the Dems didn't do a primary. Okay. You could blame it on Biden, that's what he's saying. Saying the truth, of course, is that all of these contributed, and if one or two of them had changed, we would have had a different result. But the Harris campaign and the Democratic Party in the last 100 days before the election weren't in control of most of these variables. So it's highlighting like a lot of the stage was kind of set, not in the last 100 days. Honestly, they were doing what they could, but a lot of this was what was happening in the entire administration. Things that would have been possible to talk about inflation and immigration better than they did, but their real failure was to not pivot to the political center in a way that most found credible. Some are going to disagree here, but Sam has a big following. He's a pretty smart guy. Let's hear him out, see what he has to say. So to return to my hobby horse, Democrats really must absorb what is undeniably a total political defeat. They simply must recognize that several planks of their platform are thoroughly rotten. Identity politics is over. No one wants it. Latinos and blacks don't even want it. It's witnessed by the fact that they moved to Trump in record numbers. Trump got a majority of Latino men nationwide. I agree with him, but also, if you're just talking about the election, Harris wasn't ever saying she was a black woman. She was different than Hillary in that way. But if you're looking at the stage that was set for years before that, yes, the Democratic Party is heavily tied to identity politics. Saying identity politics is dead, and we have to bury it. Now, I think we still want to have policies that help many groups, but maybe what he's arguing here is like the focusing specifically on one group, someone running saying that we need to elect black men or we need to elect women, or policies that exclusively help women or exclusively help one race. I think that's what he's getting at. Some could correct me on that. There's one species of identity politics that had an enormous effect on the election, and most Democrats don't seem to realize that around 0.5% of American adults identify as transgender or non-binary. That's 1 in 200 people, and yet the activism around this and this identity has deranged our politics for as long as Trump has been in politics. One lesson that I would be quick to draw from this election is that Americans aren't really fond of seeing biological men punch women in the face at the Olympics. And if that sounds like transphobia to you, you're the problem. Okay, so he's claiming that the trans issue was big in losing Democrats the election, that people are associating Democrats with the last 4 years or even before that, the last decade of defending trans women in sports. Okay, so he's highlighting here trans women are people and should have all the political freedom of people, but to say they're a woman and that making any distinction between them and biological women for any purpose is a thought crime and an act of bigotry. That is the new concept this is the precept of a new religion, and it's a religion that most Americans want nothing to do with. This probably won't be popular with some people. I agree with Sam here. We want to treat people with dignity. We want them to have many rights, but to say that they have the right to compete against biological women in sports, and that should trump the ability for biological women to compete against individuals that are close to their same size and their same strength. That's not a hill that Democrats should try to die on. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but there are other issues that are more important, and if Democrats cling to that, they are going to lose elections for, I'm going to predict, the next 100 years. Again, you want to try to treat these people as well as you can, but to really dig in and fight for sports, I agree with Sam here. I want to be very clear about this. I have no doubt there are real cases of gender dysphoria, and we should want to give such people all the help they need to feel comfortable in their own bodies and societies. How we think about this and how we understand it scientifically is still in flux, but there are 4-year-olds, prompted with nothing, claim to be in the wrong body. For instance, they were born a boy, but they insist they're really girls, and they never waver from this. It's pretty obvious in those cases that something is going on neurologically or hormonally at the core of their being, and that it is not a matter of them having been influenced by the culture. But conversely, there now seem to be countless examples where the possibility of social contagion is obvious, where due to the influence of trans activists on our institutions, these kids are effectively in a cult, being brainwashed by a new orthodoxy. These are radically different cases. So I'm a teacher. I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but I have seen some years where these kids are all congregated together. And perhaps it's because they feel community and they feel a sense of belonging. But also there is the question, if you have a group of 5 and 3 of them tend to, the junior high level, claim to be trans, and then others are then later coming out and saying it, there is the question being brought up, are they influencing each other at all? I'm not going to argue that's always the case, but to say that's never the case, do we understand how group polarization works? Do we understand how people can persuade each other politically and with other beliefs? That's not going to be popular. I'm sure there's going to be some people that are further left than I am socially that are going to be outraged hearing this, but I'm not going to argue with Sam and say he's wrong here. Okay, right here, I've spoken to many Democrats, and over the course of this election, a shocking percentage of them imagine that all the controversy about trans rights and gender identity in kids is just a product of right-wing bigotry, and that it's a non-issue politically. I can tell you, I know Democrats, and people stay quiet about it. It is not a non-issue, and it's not a product of right-wing bigotry. Some of it could be, but not all of it. Might as well have been the only issue in the election, not because they're transphobic assholes, but because they simply do not accept the new metaphysics and even new biology mandated by trans activists and the institutions they have successfully bullied and captured. Having the thought police suddenly prescribe the use of the term woman and demanding that we speak instead of birthing person or menstruators or people with ovaries or some other Orwellian construct designed to test everyone's patience and sanity, the sight of people being deplatformed on social media or fired from universities for merely stating their 2 biological sexes, talks about professors losing their jobs, right? Congratulations, Dems. You found the most annoying thing in the galaxy and hung it around your necks. I'm not going to argue that that's the main reason, but to say that had no impact, I can tell you, I know people that are moderates, or they might be center right, that this was a big deal for. And they watched the documentary by Matt Walsh. I know he's a provocateur, but they watched this and they believe it's a huge issue, and they voted for Trump in large part because they felt he's on the right side of this. These are people who probably wouldn't have voted for him otherwise. And so if you believe that protecting that 0.5% of the population is more important than the 20 million immigrants that could potentially get deported, or the people who might really struggle financially at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, all these other groups, right? If you believe that this issue is more important, then yeah, maybe you'll say that you have to defend them. But I don't know if all Democrats are going to agree on that. Okay, right here. According to a poll titled "Why America Chose Trump, Inflation, Immigration, and the Democratic Brand," For these swing voters, the strongest predictor of a vote for Trump was their response to the following statement. Kamala Harris is focused more on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle class. Some people are bringing up she wasn't campaigning on transgender issues. That's true. I didn't hear her campaign on that, but it's just the fact that the Democratic Party is associated in people's minds with defending women in sports. That's something that, in order to win elections, probably need to get broken. Right here, that's exactly what he's saying. First day of office, President Biden signed executive order ensuring trans girls would have access to girls' restrooms, locker rooms, and sports. It took him 2.5 years to sign executive order addressing chaos at the border. Okay, maybe I've got to get going. Maybe we'll finish this analysis in a future video, but we'll stop for